This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi, my name's Phil Leahy, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of The Empty Chair, Exposing Addiction. Hopefully you've been watching us on MCTV, but for the episodes you missed, I hope you tune into YouTube and search The Empty Chair Show. I think we have something like 20 episodes there you can get all caught up. We cover all different aspects of addiction recovery and hopefully prevention and education. Tonight, we're kind of do something a little bit different. I know we've had a lot of recovering addicts come on, they tell their stories and so forth, but more so than telling the story tonight, we're going to kind of get into what they do and what they continue to do to not only help themselves, but other people that they, in the groups they belong to. So I'm going to let Colleen introduce our guests.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Colleen. I'm an addict in recovery. I've been clean for about 5.5 years, and I love doing the show. It's really important to raise awareness for, just to show that there's like this hope for people in active addiction, that you can recover, that you can have a good life, and you can help other people do the same thing. And with the empty chair represents the addict that died, not knowing recovery is possible, sometimes knowing recovery is possible, and it's just really important for people to, you know, to get rid of like the stigma attached to addiction, you know, that we're not bad people, like we're sick people getting better every day. And I don't know, another reason I love doing this show is because like I get to have some of my friends, like my family, come on and share, you know, share their knowledge of like the program, their experience, and kind of give the hope to you watching. So I'll introduce my guests, Katrina and Kimmy, and I guess we'll start with you, Katrina, just like a little bit of history of like, you know, what it was like before you came into recovery, like what brought you into recovery.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Katrina, I'm a recovering addict as well. I believe that I was born into recovery as I was brought up with an alcoholic and addicted father. I grew up in the halls of the fellowship, and I knew about it at a very young age. And I do believe for myself that it was like genetic for me, and that it was going to happen eventually. But it did start didn't start until I got out of high school, when I got into like drinking and hanging out with the wrong crowds, and it progressed.
Peer pressure.
Yeah, peer pressure, yeah. For a while I was like against it all, and then that one time, and like I loved it, and into college, like it just progressed because it's a progressive disease, and I ended up dropping out a couple times and messing up my GPA. Like I only went for my parents. I wasn't doing it for me. And it just got worse and worse. And as I turned 21, like I was off and running, you know, in and out of bars and parties and drinking and driving. Like thank God I've never got a DUI. I've yet to get a DUI. It's always a yet. And I just kind of realized that like my life was going in a way that I didn't want it to go. I looked back and didn't remember a lot of the years. So I actually went into a recovery house, and I stayed there for about 6 months when I was 21. I did end up leaving after 6 months, and I did relapse. But the next day, like I was back in. And since then, like now I have 3.5 years, and I'm 26, and I'm in school again. You know, I have a career. Like, I just realized that like I was a sick and suffering addict, and like I needed help, and things needed to change, and that like I wanted to live my life. You know, so like that's what happened. I came into the halls, and I got a new life, and that's where I am today.
Nice. What about you, Kimmy?
Unlike Katrina, like I was an addict really young, and I went looking for it. I wanted to be with people that that were doing what everyone else around thought wasn't the right thing. I wanted to be with them. I must have already felt as if I didn't fit in with typical society, and so to rebel joined like anti-society. And I don't remember how I found out about recovery, but I think because I was young and everybody was always trying to get me help, that I found out about it a long time ago. But I wasn't ready to take what was offered until I was ready.
Right.
And I don't know what it took, but I guess for both of us, what you said is kind of like, you reach a point where you're just sick of having your life run by drugs. And you've been through enough hell and paid enough consequences that you're finally ready for something different.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into recovery too.
Yeah, and you know, stories are obviously similar to ones that she's told, you know, how she started them and when she hit her. But I know, and I'm sure it's going to be the same with you guys, I know Colleen has told me in the past that although she's got all this clean time, which she's had in the past also and then relapsed, the thing that keeps her going is the group she belongs to, with the people she hangs out with, the sponsor that guides her. I'm going to take a wild guess, you know, by the way, why don't you let everybody know how much time you got?
So I'll have 22 years in April.
So obviously you have been around the block and seen a lot of people come and go. Yeah, I'm sure you've had your successes and incidences weren't so successful. I know you do a lot of sponsoring and so forth. But now you've got, I'm going to ask a question, don't take offense to it. You got 22 years. What the hell do you keep going to meetings for and that? I mean, you're clean, you're all set, you're better, you're cured.
Cured?
Well, no.
And believe me, I'm not saying that because I feel that way.
Right, no, I understand that you're just being the messenger for the people who do feel that way.
Yeah.
Well, and addiction is more similar to an ongoing chronic disorder or syndrome or illness or disease, such as diabetes or cancer, where if you do the treatment and do what is best for you and follow a regimen and take care of yourself, it can kind of go into remission. But the minute that you stop that, it can come back. And people accept that about diabetes and about cancer. And it's hard to get people to understand that about addiction because they tend to not want to think of it as a syndrome or a disorder or a disease. They want to think of it as like a moral failing.
Good point.
You know, and so it's not as simple as a moral failing, and there's a lot of different addicts that have it for a lot of different reasons, but it's an obsessive compulsive disorder where it's kind of like once you start, you can't stop. And no one wants to believe that because we're all capable, intelligent people. Some of us are functioning when we're using, or at least for a while. And but sometimes people function for a long time, and that doesn't mean that they're not living in hell.
Right.
So you don't believe in the theory of a functioning addict?
Well, yeah, I do.
You do believe?
I do, but that doesn't mean that they're feeling good about their life.
Yeah.
So they might be functioning, but that doesn't mean that they're satisfied and content with their life the way it is.
Okay, all right. So yeah, actually that would be a good definition of a functioning addict. Yeah, someone who uses because they have to use, but yeah, they get by.
But they're still sick and suffering.
Feel rotten on the inside.
Recovery is for people who feel they're sick and suffering. It's not for people who don't.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work too, to be in recovery, but it's worth it. You know, meetings are like our medicine. I know it's like, for me, it's like my medicine.
Right.
So the first time that you went to a meeting, what was that experience like for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Well, my sister had already been in the halls prior to me, and she was convinced that I had a problem. So she kind of like dragged me to one. And the first time I went, I was like, what am I doing here? You know, like I had seen some of the people at like, you know, barbecues she's had and things like that, and friends of the family. But I wasn't actually like in one for me. And being there, like sitting there just thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, what is wrong with these people? You know what I mean? Like, how could you want to be clean, like without anything, you know, and be happy? And then like sitting in this room with all these people and like listening to their stories, and like it was kind of like an eye roller for me.
Yeah.
And then like the whole like circling or certain things they said, like I went and thought it was like a cult. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like these people are crazy, you know what I mean?
Did anybody ask you to like say anything? Did you have to do anything, or do you just kind of go in, sit down, and?
Yeah, like they ask if there's anybody new, but I was not about to raise my hand.
Right. So you don't have to if you don't want to.
No, you can just sit there and observe, and that's exactly what I did. I was just like, I hope nobody sees me. You know? But yeah.
So what about you, Kim?
I had gone to meetings because it was required by certain people, and I liked everybody there. I had no intention of doing what they were doing, and it wasn't for me. And but I did like everybody there. I respected them. I admired them, and I understood it. It just wasn't over for me. I still was going to try my own way.
Yeah.
And so I politely would say, well, I'll see yous all later. You know? and they'd say, well, we're saving a seat for you. You'll be back. And I'd say, well, thank you. And maybe I will be back.
Yeah.
And when I decided that I had suffered enough and paid enough consequences, I knew where to go. You know, like it was over, and I knew what to do. And so I showed up, and instead of having the mindset that I had always had before, that I wasn't willing to do anything that they do, I had broken through the denial. Like I wasn't under any illusion that I could take care of addiction on my own. All my excuses were done, they were over. I had tried everything my way, and I finally came to the conclusion that I needed help.
Right.
So I was willing to do what they said. And what they said was, first of all, just show up.
Right.
Just show up. I didn't have to do anything. That in the anonymous 12-step fellowships and programs that I go to, they have literature that you can read to find out about it. You can hear what people say at the meetings. People share. They share their sick and suffering experience, then they share their hope, and then they share what they're doing to stay clean. And you know, I would listen, and like I said, I admired and respected the addicts. I could tell. I identified with them, so I could tell they knew what they were talking about. They weren't condescending. They were just heartfelt, telling the truth. And I knew that I could trust what they said because I identified with it. I was feeling them. I could feel them. And I felt comfortable talking to them as if they could feel me, as if for the first time.
Now, I know you go back 22 years. Try a little trivia. Do you remember maybe the first time you got up and shared?
I don't remember the first time that I got up and shared. No. I barely remember some of the first times that I shared. I know that I was scared. I know that whatever I thought I was going to say is not what I was going to say. and then when I was through, I couldn't remember anything that I had said.
Yeah.
But you're not
right.
required. You're not required to speak at all.
No, I know. I was just curious how you felt inside, like the first time that you put yourself out there.
Right. You know, by the time I ever did that, I had wanted to.
Yeah.
But maybe had to get some advice and work up to it. You know, it helps if you do share, for one aspect, to let the other people know who you are and that you're not judging them, just like you don't want them to judge you.
Yeah.
And if you share a little bit about yourself, that you know how you're suffering with addiction and why you came, it lets people know that who you are, and they remember you.
And then the identification starts to happen where, you know, you start hearing things like, oh, I did that and I felt like that. And
Right.
you
Yeah,
know.
see, I was just going to say, because, you know, I have a support group for the families of addicts, and a lot of times when they come in, they think their kid is the worst kid that was ever born. He's the worst, he's terrible. And then you'll hear some of the other stories, and I've had people come up and say, "Geez, my kid's not so bad after all," and they start feeling sorry for the ones that.
Right.
So I mean, when you've told your story, before you've told your story, and you listen to the others, does that have some kind of an impact, knowing that, you know, I'm not here alone?
It can go both ways. Sometimes I would hear stories and say, well, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, because you're vulnerable and you don't want to be vulnerable, so you don't want to think that you're the worst. But then other times, you realize that the things that you are ashamed of, and that you're no different, and you can trust,
Yeah.
and that these people have compassion and they're not judgmental. And eventually you learn not to be judgmental. You learn to have compassion and empathy for everybody, regardless of how different they are from you and their story or whatever. The results are the same.
Then you start to form like bonds with people just from hearing each other share, and you start to get like more comfortable. Because it took me a while to get comfortable in meetings and just getting to like know people. Just coming in, like if you're not like a social butterfly, and it's like you have to like make these connections with people who are gonna eventually help you to save your life. Like if you do the work, like it can be really difficult, but nothing is like demanded on us when we come in other than suggestions. Like people just give us like suggestions, you know. You've shared at meetings?
Yeah, I won't forget the first time I shared. That's
How
for
long do
sure.
you usually have to be clean to
They
share at a meeting?
suggest 90 days. It's probably like depends on the group, but most places it's 90.
Yeah.
And when I first shared, like I was drenched in sweat. Don't remember a thing I said, like she said. And my voice was shaking. But like, I did it because I was told like you do it for the person in the room that needs to hear you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like a selfless thing to do.
Yeah.
Because for me, like, I never thought that I belonged because I was young and I didn't live under a bridge. So like, I constantly compared my way out the door rather than identified.
Yeah.
So when I share, like, I try to talk so that people can identify with my story, you know what I mean, rather than compare. But it's definitely, like, for me, it's still a scary thing. And even when I first came in, like, I sat in the back for a while and I watched people. I didn't socialize. And I slowly got there, you know, because, and I was grateful that they didn't pressure me because I probably would have left.
Right.
And like still to this day, like I don't always share because it's just not something that like I love to do.
Right, right.
I'll do it like once in a while just to like give back.
Right.
But it's not a requirement, and like thank God for that because I probably wouldn't be there.
So you're nervous, Sharon, so say somebody comes in the door, like say somebody like sees this show or whatever, and they want to find out about meetings, and they hear you saying, oh, I'm like nervous when I share, and they're probably thinking, well, I'm nervous just going to the meeting, so at least here's somebody that's also like nervous in the room, so I'm not alone with that. So if they come into a meeting and they come and sit down, like what basically like happens like at the meeting? They come in, sit down, meeting starts. somebody will
Yeah,
speak.
how do you treat a new person coming in?
Yeah, what would
Well-
you suggest that they do when they go in there?
I would suggest that, like, when they ask, you know, if there's anybody new or coming back, to raise your hand and identify yourself, to just do it, because it's scary. But, like, as soon as you do that, there's definitely going to be somebody that gets a list for you and gets phone numbers to get you connected with people in the fellowship to make it easier for you. Because when you come in there and you're just, like, scared and you don't know anyone or anything, it can be scary, and, like, who wants to feel that way?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, it's so that you're not alone, to show you that you're not alone. But, like, and a lot of times, even if they don't identify themselves, which I definitely suggest you do, like, somebody usually notices and will come talk to you, because it is hard to also identify yourself.
Yeah.
But I definitely would suggest, like, raising your hand and just doing it, you know?
Just break the ice. Get over that fear. So they give you a meeting list or whatever, then with phone numbers, so you can call people if you need support or if you want to use or to get to or whatever.
Anything.
You can pick up the phone and you can call somebody who's you know, the compassion, because like you were saying, like we've been in each other's shoes. You know, so then they'll have a speaker. The speaker will speak or sometimes read out of the literature, and then that's it. So it's really not a very scary experience. Like I know that like when I first started going to meetings, there was a little bit of fear just because it was like the unknown, you know, and not knowing anybody. That was the main thing. I wasn't so much scared of like going to a meeting. It was just like, oh my God, people I don't know, and me too, like in the back. I'm staying back here. But there was something about like the meetings that I went to that like kept me coming back, because I heard people saying stuff that they did and like I did the same stuff, or talking about how they felt, you know, when they were using and where their life was. And I felt the same way, and I was like, wow. And I don't know. Did you believe that like everybody was really clean and happy in the meetings, or did that take a while to?
No, I understood.
Yeah, because I've heard some people say that like there's no way people can be this happy and,
well,
and
no,
clean at the same
you know,
time.
and when you go in that respect, like, because I know people who aren't ready, you know, that their parents force them to go to a meeting. I remember dragging you to a meeting one time.
I remember that, yeah.
Right? And parents, because we're so intelligent, they'll come back and say, oh, Dad, those meetings, you know what you do down there? You make connections.
Is that what I said?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
That's how you learn who has it. So, you know, you don't want me going to those meetings, because if I go there, I'm going to find more people on where I can buy and hang out and do something. And I've heard that from other parents in my group.
Yeah.
The kids will use that as an excuse not to go to a meeting. Yeah.
Well, you will not find recovery unless you're looking for it.
I agree.
If you're looking to stay in addiction, you know, you can go anywhere and still stay in your addiction.
Let me ask you a question. Now, I know people do come to meetings, you know, like we just mentioned, people that, you know, maybe have to go to get their signature or whatever like that.
Right.
Or people who parents force. You guys must be able to spot the ones that are not there for the right reasons.
I'm not really trying to spot them. All the meetings that I went to when I wasn't interested, in the end, didn't end up worthless. Any information that I learned, I actually retained, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And then when I wanted it, it all came. I remembered anything that I had learned when I was there. So it doesn't matter what reason gets people there. What's important is, the same as this show, that once they know it's there, that when they're ready, they know where to go. When I was ready, I knew where to go. It's always, I don't understand when I hear people say that they never heard of any groups for recovery from addiction or any anonymous programs, any help. It really surprises me in this day and age that people still say, I didn't know anything about it and didn't know where to go. So whatever gets you there, this show, a judge, your parents, whatever gets you there, even if you're not ready, you learn a little bit and you know where to go when you are ready.
Well, yeah, the introduction, I guess, would be extremely important, yeah, for when the time comes.
And if someone's going to meetings and say if they have like a slip and they relapse, or if they're high, is anybody welcome in meetings regardless of
All
if
the
you're
time.
clean or not?
All,
Oh, yeah.
all the time. Whether you're clean or not, just come and see what there is to offer.
Yep.
Right. To people who don't understand what meetings are and they wonder what these people are doing at meetings, it's no different than sitting around with friends because everyone has something in common. Mm-hmm. They all have suffered at the hands of addiction. So they can be totally different in how they grew up, what they look like, their likes and dislikes, their economic status, and yet when it comes to that, they identify with each other. And so the people are sharing. They're sharing that it got to a point where they did not know how to live life without drugs and didn't think that they could live without drugs. And they came and got together with other people who felt the same way. And together, they supported each other in staying away from drugs for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Did you get the fingers?
I only got 2 fingers. We only got 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Could you imagine your life without meetings?
No, because I would be in jails, institutions, or dead. So without that, like, I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am today. And like everything I've gone through has brought me where I am today, and I'm beyond grateful for the fellowship.
And in the beginning, you said that you didn't need these things, and now how do you feel about going to meetings?
I have to go.
Would you say it's something that you like to do today?
Yes, I love
Yeah.
it. It's like my medicine too. You know, I go and I feel good after, and it's like what I need to survive. You know.
Look forward to seeing people.
I think it went
Yeah.
over. I think it went over when Colleen said, "I need to be with my friends, my family." I think that people thought that was 2 separate things. We're all friends now, and we feel as if we're family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like we're family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but we're not related.
But close. It's all you.
Well, I'm going to thank you for coming. I appreciate you getting into the meetings as much as you could. I wish we could have gone more because there's a lot of questions I had to ask how we can get it out to the general public. But because we have so many people like you coming in every month we still get the awareness out. So you want to wrap up real quick?
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for coming. And,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I love being around addicts. It's my family. It's how I get better every day. It's how I, fight the disease of addiction every day, and it's how, I just feel good about myself every day. And it's because of people like this. So I don't know. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, and again, I thank you for coming too.
Thank you.
Every show we comes in, a few more people learn about it, a few more ideas, a little more awareness to those people out there who haven't been directly affected. So
Right.
thank you, and we'll probably see you again sometime.
Definitely.
For myself and Colleen and our 2 special guests, I'd like to thank you for joining us. Hope to see you next month on another episode of The Empty Chair. Bye.